Hi. Well, I just finished watching Obama's inaugural address. You know, they say it was his second inaugural, but in reality it was sort of his first inaugural, because the one he gave us in 2009 had nothing to do with his agenda. This time he really, frankly, laid out his agenda. It's instructive to compare the two inaugural addresses, the first and the second, for us to understand the magnitude of the deception in the first and the breathtaking agenda outlined in the second. In the first inaugural address, Obama gave very short shrift to any issue relating to civil rights, never mentioned gay rights, scarcely mentioned women's rights, and really almost didn't talk about it at all. He did say that God-given promise that all are equal, all are free, and all deserve a chance for their full measure of happiness, and so on. All races and creeds, but there was really nothing at length about civil rights. In this speech, about 15% of the speech was about that. He talked about the not by the colors of our skin, blood drawn by the lash and by the sword, in effect quoting Abraham Lincoln. He talked about segregation, and a huge portion of the speech was to also speak about the rights of gays, the rights of women, and that's all fine, but it clearly is reflecting Obama's agenda, whereas his first inauguration really didn't reflect it at all. I thought that there was one incredibly symbolic thing. In his first inaugural address, Obama spoke of the promise of to honor those who died in places like Concord and Gettysburg, Normandy, and Khe Sanh in Vietnam. In this speech, he spoke about the star that guides us all, just as it guided our forebears through Seneca Falls, Selma, and Stonewall. For those of you who need translation, Seneca Falls was the birth of the feminist movement, and Stonewall was the birth of the gay rights movement. But what an interesting parallel, that in his first inaugural he spoke of these national symbols, and in the second inaugural he spoke about symbols aimed at each particular special interest group. And then the speech continued essentially to be a paean to special interest groups. In his first inauguration, he made only one comment about class warfare, and even that was kind of a grudging comment. He said that our economy is badly weakened as a consequence of the greed and irresponsibility on the part of some, but also our collective failure to make hard choices and prepare the nation for a new age. So it was really a balanced critique. But in this inauguration, time after time was spent on class warfare. We resolved that a great nation must care for the vulnerable and protect its people, and cannot succeed when a shrinking few do very well and a growing many barely make it. We do not believe happiness in this country is reserved only for the lucky or for the few. Class warfare was a key theme of the speech. And then he proceeded to talk at length about Social Security and the elderly, demagoguing the issue, knowing full well that the issue is not, do we want our elderly to get Social Security, or do we want to cut it now, but whether we can preserve it for the future, whether there's any prospect that we could make the adjustments and cuts necessary now to permit people to get Social Security in 20 years. Instead, he spoke about, we reject the belief that Americans must choose between caring for the generation that built this country and investing in the generation that will build its future. Well, forget investing in the generation that will build its future. How about not burdening them with a gigantic debt that at the moment that's likely to more than double during the 8 years of his presidency? That's the choice we face. Do we pay out money to the current generation without any stop, or do we save our children from debt? But the speech was not entirely missing references to the future. He was very eloquent when he talked about saving the future generations from climate change. Not the deficit, not the debt, not an economy without opportunity, but climate change. That is the big danger that faces us all. Now, in a video next week, I'm going to go through the scientific evidence that makes very clear that it is only a very limited climate change that's happening, that it is not severe, that it is not drastic in terms of its consequences, and that it is not worth turning our whole country on its head, an economy upside down, to try to deal with it. But he devoted a huge portion of the speech to climate change. I thought the speech was very well written. I thought it was eloquently given, and I found myself wishing that I agreed with it. I found myself wishing that I could unite behind this inspirational leader and follow him in the direction he wanted to go. But I can't, because that direction compromises completely the future. It'll leave our country burdened by debt, mired in inequality, stagnating with no economic growth, being ripped off for the benefit of our current people, and totally compromising our future. And that's an America we can't voluntarily choose. Thanks a lot for watching.